Dear students, this video is in continuation with the previous video of Chief Seattle's speech. In this video, we are going to continue further what Chief Seattle says in his speech. Till now, we have read that Chief Seattle expresses his concern towards the nature and how nature had been compassionate upon his people for centuries, but now the situation seemed to change. He ascertains his reliability by correlating his words to the stars that never change. Similarly, he makes his standpoint in response to the land treaty, and he also that the president is kind as he offers friendship and goodwill for his people. Then later on, he talks about the terrible condition of his people and how population has declined over time. He does not hold whites responsible for it. He says that even his own people are responsible for it. He criticizes the youth by calling them impulsive and how old people, they were unable to stop them, and how they colored their faces and they revolted against the whites, and how they were pushed westwards, how the ancestors of this Red Indians were pushed westwards by the whites because of this impulsive behavior of youth. Then he also mentions about the obviously land treaty and how the president has proposed to safeguard the women, children and old men of natives from the attacks of his ancient enemies. And after that he says that he would be our father now. George Washington would be her father now. Then he questions that whether it is possible or not, because their culture is different, their God is different, and he says that their origin and destinies are different. People have attained all the love and care of God, and however the tribal have been deprived of the same, and thus they have come to a point of extinction. So he isn't sure whether both the communities can dwell together or live together. So let's start. He says, he gave you laws. He here is God. He's saying that God has given laws to his white children, pale-faced children, but had no word for his red children, whose teeming multitude once filled this vast continent as star fills the firmament. So in this line he says, in this line again he specifies how God has been partial towards the white children and he has forsaken his red children. He says, not given word for the red children, has not given any message to the red children, whose teeming multitude once filled the vast continents as the stars fills the firmament. He says that the population of the Red Indians once filled the continent like the stars fill the sky. There were so many in number, but the God has stopped listening to them, stopped sending any messages to them, unlike his white children. No, we are distinct races with separate origins and separate destinies. There's little common between us. So he comes to a conclusion that both the races are distinct and separate in origin and destinies, and they have nothing common between them. Then he continues to show this difference in the further paragraph also. He says, to us here means the Red Indians, to us the ashes of our ancestors are sacred and their resting place is a hallowed ground. So he's saying that the place where their ancestors have been buried is a holy place for them. And same for the whites. He says, you wander far from the graves of your ancestors and seemingly without regret. So the whites have left their own native lands and they have left the graves of their ancestors behind, and they seem to be living here in America, leaving their ancestors and their graves behind without any regret. So they are very unlike these Red Indians, for whom the graves of their ancestors, the ashes of their ancestors is very sacred and holy. Our religion was written on the tablet of stone by the iron finger of your God. so that you could not forget. So he's saying your religion was written upon the tablet of stone by the iron finger of your God, so that you could not forget. Iron finger is a biblical phrase here that means finger of God. Here Chief Settle is showing that how religion of whites is different from that of the Red Indians. For whites, everything is written, all the rules of their religion are written by the finger, by the God himself, so that the whites, they do not forget what is their religion. So everything is written by God for them so that they don't forget what their religion is. But what it is for red man is totally different. Further he says, red man could never comprehend or remember it. So here Chief Settle is saying that the rules of the religion of whites cannot be understood by the red Indians, or they cannot understand it well. Our religion is the tradition of our ancestors. So for red Indians, their religion is the tradition and culture of their ancestors. The dream of our old men given them in the solemn hours of the night by the Great Spirit. So the Great Spirit here is God of red Indians. So the whites were the Christians, and their religion is written by the iron finger of God on tablet. So everything in their religion is written for them so that they don't forget. Whereas in case of red men, they follow the tradition of their ancestors, and that is the religion for them. So they don't have anything written as such like whites, and they cannot comprehend or understand the religion of white. And what is the religion for them? For red Indians, the religion is the tradition of their ancestors and the dreams of their ancestors that they have written during the solemn hours of night, and they were guided by the Great Spirit, that is their God. So here you need to understand that how God of whites and reds is different. So whites followed their religion is Christianity, and it is written upon the tablet of stone by the iron finger of God. So it is a biblical term that the God has himself written all the laws of religion for the whites, but the red man cannot comprehend, cannot understand the religion of white. For them, their religion is the tradition of the ancestors and the dreams of their old men given to them in the solemn hour of the night. That means when in the serious hours of the night, they got the visions of the Great Spirit, and he gave them plans, and the religion is written on the hearts of their people. So he says, solemn hours of the night by the Great Spirit, and the visions and schemes is written in the hearts of our people. So the visions that they received from the Great Spirit, their God, it is written on the hearts of the people. It is very close to the heart of the people, and it is not nowhere written as such, physically written as such, like the religion of the whites. So this is the difference between the religion of whites and the red Indians. So here points that will differentiate the religion of whites from that of reds. Then he continues telling the differences in the further paragraph also. He says, your dead cease to love you, your dead stop to love you, and the land of their nativity as soon as they pass the portals of the tomb and wander away beyond the stars. He's saying as soon as your ancestors are dead, as soon as they are in the tombs and they wander beyond the stars, they are in the heaven, they forget the land, their native land. They are soon forgotten and never return. So he says, you also forget them and they never return back. But he says, our dead never forget this beautiful world that gave them being. He says, your dead are different from our dead, because your dead forget their land as soon as they die, and you also forget them and they never return back on their land. But he says, our dead, they never forget their native land, the beautiful native land where they were born. They still love its verdant valleys, its murmuring rivers, its magnificent mountains, crested vales, and verdant-lined lakes and bays, and ever yearn in tender, fond affection over the lonely-hearted living, and often return from the happy hunting ground to guide, console, and comfort them. So he says that our ancestors are different from that of yours, because your ancestors, that once they are dead, they have gone beyond the stars, they forget their native land, and you also forget them, and they never return. But our ancestors, they are so attached to the native land where they were born, that they still return back to see the valleys, the rivers, the mountains, the lakes, the bays, and they often come back from the hunting ground, from the heaven above, to guide, console, and comfort the nature, because they are very attached. So the reason behind Chief Seattle saying all these things is that he wants to show how attached they were to nature. Later also in the next paragraph also, Chief Seattle continues with this difference. He says day and night cannot dwell together. He says as day and night cannot live together, when day comes, night goes away, and when night falls, day is over. So as day and night cannot dwell together, similarly both these races cannot live together. Red man has ever fled the approach of white man as the morning mist flees before the morning sun. So as the morning fog disappears when the sun rises, similarly man has ever fled the approach of the white man. He says that the red man, that is the men, have disappeared before the approach of white, as the morning mist, as the morning fog, you can say, flees before the morning sun. Similarly, he compares the red man and the whites like day and night, because they cannot together. Then he says, however, your proposition seems fair, and I think that my people will accept it and will retire to the reservation of you offer them. So he says, then he again comes back to the proposal that has been sent, the land treaty that has been sent. He says that but white man's proposition seems fair, and he thinks that his people will accept it. Then we will dwell apart in peace, for the words of the great white chief seem to be the words of nature, speaking to my people out of the dense darkness. He says that then there is a hope that both the communities can dwell apart. Still, they will not live together. They will live apart peacefully, because he says that words of the great white chief seem to be the words of nature, speaking to his people out of dense darkness. So he's comparing the situation. Every time he compares the situation of the Reds, he talks of nature. As the nature, they are in dense darkness. Their future seems to be very uncertain. They don't know how long they will survive. That is why he's calling that my people, that it seems as if nature is talking to my people from dense darkness. The words of great white chief are compared to the words of nature, that is talking to his people in the dark atmosphere around them, because they don't think that they are left with any more time to live. So their community is distincting, and they don't have much time left now. So saying as if the nature is speaking to his people out of this dense darkness. So that is how he compares the word of great white chief to that of the words of nature. So till now we have read that when he talks about the proposal sent by George Washington, he calls him their good father because he has promised to protect the natives. Then he says if this happens, if he protects the natives from the ancient enemies, then in true sense he would be their father and they would be their children. Then a doubt lingers in the mind of Chief Seattle, and he says that the God of white people is not their God because like their own God, the Great Spirit, he has also forsaken us, and he's very partial to his white children. And then later on, after talking about God and how they are separate in origin and separate in destinies, he talks about how their land and their natural environment is sacred for their ancestors, and the ashes of the ancestors are sacred for them, and how the natives love to stay in their land where their ancestors' memories are still alive, and their ancestors also wander far away from the stars and again come back to the land to visit the mountains, the vales, the valleys, and the bays. Unlike the ancestors of the whites who forget their land as soon as they are dead, and the whites also forget their ancestors as soon as they have gone to heaven. He also talks about the religion of his people and how it is different from that of whites. He says that the religion of the whites is written on tablets of stone by the iron finger of their god. So, religion of white is meant strict adherence to rules, right? So, here they are talking about that they are expected to follow 10 commandments. Iron finger of God again is a biblical term. So, this is very different from they follow Christianity. So, it is a institutionalized Christianity wherein they believed and they have to adhere to specific rules. When they talk about when he talks about the religion written upon the tablets by the iron finger of God, he is specifying that how they have to follow. The Christians have to follow 10 commandments that are written in their religion, but it is very different from the religion of natives because they believe in spiritualism. They believe that the religion is the tradition of their. They believe that they are the visions that their ancestors got from the Great Spirit, and it is written on their hearts, and that is how they cannot understand and comprehend the religion of the whites. So this is how the religion of whites is different from that of the Red Indians. Later he also says that how both the races cannot live together as day and night cannot stay together. The red man flee away at the approach of the white as the morning mist flees before the morning sun. He says that then he recalls the proposition that seems to be fair, and he thinks his people will accept it, and he hopes that then both the races can dwell apart and peacefully they can dwell apart. And he says that the words of George Washington are like the words of nature speaking to his people in this dark atmosphere all around. It matters little where we pass the remnant of our days. They will not be many. He says that it hardly matters that where they pass the rest of the days because they are not left with many days now. So their decline is already started, and the day is not far when their tribe will extinct altogether. So he says that wherever we pass the rest of our lives, rest of the days, it hardly matters. The Indians' night promises to be, here Indians means the Red Indians. He says that Indians' night promises to be dark. So Indians' night here means Indians' future. The Red Indians' future seemed to be dark. So every time he talks, he compares everything thing to the nature. So Chief Seattle says here that it is of little importance that where the people spent rest of their days, but it is certain that the number of the people will reduce because the Indians' night promises to be dark. They have a dark future ahead. Not a single star of hope hovers above the horizon. So he says, not even a single star of hope they can see. Sad voiced winds moan in the distance. So he's saying that uh, everywhere they can see the winds, they are moaning. At the moaning means they are sad at the unseen fate or future of this Red Indians that seem to be dark. Grim fate seems to be on the red man's trial, and wherever he will hear the approaching footsteps of his fell destroyer and prepare stolidly to meet his doom, and thus the wounded doe that hears the approaching footsteps of the hunter. In this paragraph, he says that the grim or sad face seems to hover the tribe, over the Red Indians, and they don't seem any future ahead. So the future seems to be very sad and grim. He compares the situation of his people to that of a wounded doe. Wounded doe here means the female rabbit or a deer. So he compares their situation to that of a wounded doe that is being hunted down. So as he says, whenever he hear the approaching footsteps of his fell destroyer and prepare solidly to meet his doom, as the wounded doe that hears the approaching footsteps of the hunter. So whenever he hears the approaching footsteps of his fell destroyer, whenever he hears the footstep of the whites, he compares his situation to that of a wounded doe and how he feels when he hears the footsteps of a hunter. So the comparison between the wounded doe and the Red Indians describe their situation. To describe the situation, he says, in few more years the race will disappear, and the white settlers will take over the land. So he says, a few more moons, a few more winters, and not one of the descendants of the mighty hosts that once moved over this broad land or lived in happy homes protected by the Great Spirit will remain to mourn over the graves of the people, once more powerful and hopeful than yours. So he's talking to the whites now. He says that we are not left with much time. We are going to see only few more moons and few more winters, and then the people who filled the land and lived happily on this land, they were protected by the Great Spirit, the God. They will remain to mourn over. This says nobody will remain to even mourn over, to be sad over the graves of these people who once felt so powerful and hopeful than the whites. But a time will come when there will be no one left, no Red Indian left. But why should I mourn at the untimely fate of my people? Then again he questions that why am I sad on the untimely decay of my people? He says tribes follow tribe and nation follows nation like the waves of the sea. So he says that one tribe will follow other tribe. What is happening to our tribe today will happen to your tribe tomorrow. So he says, as nation follows nation, the waves, like the waves of this, one wave follows the other wave. Similarly, one tribe will follow the other tribe, and one nation will follow the other nation. What is our destiny will be your destiny tomorrow. So he's saying that we are going to face this untimely decay today, but same will be your future too. It is the order of nature, and regret is useless. He said, why am I regretting? Why will I mourn over this untimely decay of my people, of my tribe? So he says that it is the order of nature. It is natural that what is born will die. So our tribe is going to distinct soon, but as tribe follows tribe and nation follows nation, like waves of the sea follow the other waves. Similarly, he says that your tribe, these whites will also suffer exactly like the Red Indians are suffering. Your time and decay might be distant, but it will surely come. For even the white man whose God walked and talked with him as a friend to friend cannot be exempt from the common destiny. So, what is the common destiny? Death. Our people are left with few more moons and few more winters, so our time is very near, our time of distinction is very near. There will be soon a time when not even one single red Indian will be left and everybody will be perished. So he's saying, though your time is delayed, you may not, your uh, community has a long time to stay. Say, since your destiny is far distant, your decay might be distant, but it awaits for you. It will definitely come because that is the law of nature. So he says, we will definitely share a common destiny. So he says, though your God is with you and he's walking and talking with you like your friend to friend, but you cannot be exempted from this common destiny. We may be brothers after all. We will see. He says, when at that time we can be brothers. When your and our future, our destiny becomes common, you also perish like we have, then we can be brothers. We will ponder your proposition, and when we will decide, we'll let you know. He says, we will go through the proposition, the proposal, the land treaty that you have sent, and when we will decide over it, we will let you know. So he says that we'll think over the proposition, the proposal, and we will decide over it. And he says, but we should accept it. I here and now make this condition that we will not be denied the privilege without molestation of visiting at any time the tombs of our ancestors, friends, and children. So he says that the condition that they will be free. So they are, before the decision, he puts a condition that they will be free to visit the tombs of their ancestors, the friends and children at any time. Part of the soil is sacred in the estimation of people, of my people. He says, for them, the soil, the land is very holy to them. Every hillside, every valley, every plain and groove has been hollowed by some sad or happy event in the day long vanished. So they are very attached to the land. He thinks that every part of this nature has a memory for this Red Indians. So they shouldn't be restricted to visit the land. Even the rocks which seem to be dumb and dead in the sun along the silent shores thrill with the memories of stirring events connected with the lives of my people, and the very dust upon which you now stand responds more lovingly to their footstep than yours, because it is rich with the blood of our ancestors, and your bare feet are conscious of the sympathetic touch. So he says everything about the land, even if it is living or dead, including the dust, the stone, everything is connected to the lives of native man, and the nature responds to them. The dust on which the whites are standing today responds to them with the more sympathetic touch than to the whites. So nature is also more loving to the Red Indians than to the whites. So they shouldn't be restricted to visit the nature which has been very sacred and pure to them. So it's very holy to them. So they shouldn't be restricted to visit the tombs of their ancestors. They shouldn't be restricted to visit the nature because they have so many memories attached to them, and it is very holy and sacred for them. In the entire speech, we can see the fact that how Chief Seattle doesn't consider this land to be a materialistic property that can be bought and sold. It is sacred and holy for them. The idea of buying it is not known to this Chief Seattle. So if we recall whatever we have read earlier also, he says that when he says that with much certainty you can return as you can believe on the return of sun or seasons. You can believe in my, you can rely upon my word. Seattle gives us a glimpse on the way of life which does not base itself on written legal documents, treaties, but rather on words of the leader, which are very binding, and they can it can be relied upon. So he doesn't believe in the written scriptures or written text or written legal documents, and the way he addresses the religion of whites also, which seems and artificial, because everything is written by the iron finger of the god. They are not attached to the religion by heart, as they are not attached to the land by heart. They want a written legal document of brought and sale, that the land, we want to buy your land, and we want you to sell your land, right? A written legal document for that. So they didn't believe in that things. Even their religion was written on their heart. They didn't believe in any written, they had been sent a written proposal, but they didn't. He said, you can rely upon my words, like you can rely upon the return of sun and seasons. So it's just here also he's just insisting upon that they didn't believe in any written legal documents, by insisting upon saying this, that your religion is written by the iron finger of God on the tablets, upon the tablets. Also he is insisting that we have our religion there on our heart, so we are attached to it by our heart, as we are attached to our land by heart. So we don't need that written legal documents for everything. So this is what he needs to insist on, that this is what we believe in. So that is why he comes up with all these things. That were the beliefs of these Red Indians. They didn't believe, they were not mechanical, they were not formal in terms of legalizing everything. So that is how he says that he didn't believe in any or court of law, that justice may be sought out, but he believed in the words. The Red Indians believed in the words of said is right and is fair. So unlike the whites, they believed that everything should be written and everything should be legalized. They believed in buying and selling the land. Unlike the Red Indians, to them their land was very holy and sacred. They worshipped it. For to them, even their ancestors, they did not forget it after their death. That is what they believed in. Right? So moving on to the next part of the speech, he says, our departed braves, fond mothers, glad, happy-hearted maidens, and even the little children who lived here and rejoiced here for a brief season will love the somber solitudes and the eventide, they great shadowy returning spirits. So he's saying that the mothers, the children, the maidens who have lived here, though for a short span of time, they are really attached to the land, and they will return after their death as shadowy returning spirits, and they will visit the land. And when the last man shall have perished, and the memory of my tribe shall have become a myth among the white men, these shores will swam with the invisible death of my tribe. So he's saying, even he says that when our tribe will end, even the last man of our tribe is dead, will have perished, and the memory of their tribe will become a myth, that Red Indians once lived on this land. So it would be a myth. The store, the shop upon the highway, or in the silence of the pathless wood, they will not be alone. So, sort of haunting, um, you know, this Red Indians believed in life after death. So, it says that even after centuries we have gone, after the centuries, so many years after even the red man had perished, and when our tribe will become a myth amongst the white, and still, even then, he says, we'll be coming back. We'll keep visiting our land. And when your children's children, when your upcoming generations will think that they are alone on the street, in the shops, on the highway, in the forest, they won't be alone, because the spirits of the Red Indians will be walking with them. In all the earth, there is no place dedicated to solitude. So it says, on entire earth, they will never be left alone. The spirits of red men will always be there. At night, when streets of your cities and villages are silent and you think them deserted, they will throng with the returning host that once filled them and still love this beautiful land. He says, when your children's children will feel that the streets are deserted, are all alone, there's nobody on the streets, we will come back. The spirits of Red Indian will return. The people who once filled their land and still love them, they will return back on their land. And when you feel that the streets are deserted, the villages, the cities of the country are deserted, they won't be, because the spirits of Red Indian will be returning back. The white man will never be alone. So the white man will never be left alone. Let him be just. So he is again sort of warning the president to be just and deal kindly with his people. And deal kindly with my people, for the dead are not dead. Did I say that? There is no death, only a change of worlds. So he's saying, did I say death? He says that there is no death. People don't die. Only the world changes. They are in a different world now, and after that they'll be in a different world. So it is only change of world. Nobody dies. With this, we have ended with the speech. So this speech is a brilliant document of folk wisdom, advocating coexistence of races and mutual respect for each other's way of living. So this speech is emphasizing on the themes of love, brotherhood, coexistence and respect for nature, despite the differences between the religion, between the beliefs, between the gods of red Indians and whites. So there are so many differences between both the races, but still the speech teaches us how can both of the races can live together with love and respect towards each other's beliefs, by agreeing to the terms and conditions which are not too much. They are not, the Red Indians are not demanding too much from whites. They are just demanding rights to visit the graves of their ancestors and the place freely, because it is very sacred to them. They have so many memories attached to it. So this is how Chief Seattle puts forth his point when he proposal from whites and for buying their land. And I hope you have understood the speech well. In case anything is not clear, do let me know in the comment section. Thank you so much.